Hi everyone, I thought I would pop back on and film another quick video for you whilst I'm in the videoing mood. I was thinking, I just bought some clothes and I was going to do a haul, but then I thought, I've done a haul already. I thought I want to do something a bit more interesting, a bit more gritty. So I thought I would do my labour and delivery story. I know they're highly requested on YouTube from other YouTube mummies out there that have just had babies, and I know that Finley's old in YouTube baby terms, so he's just over 18 months now, but I thought, why not, as I remember as much as I can remember, let you all know and let you in on how everything went. I wanted to make this video, I'm not joking here, as soon as I'd had him, but because I had a weird phobia of making YouTube videos, I never ever did it, and I'm gutted now because I feel as though there's probably so many things that I'm missing and I don't remember half of it. I'm sure I do, but it's nothing, to be honest, it's not an exciting one. But I thought you might like to know. I will do my hospital experience in a separate video, purely because I was there for 3 days after. It wasn't like a 7 hours and then off you go, see you later kind of thing. It was I had to stay in for a little bit, so I'll do that separately, just because I've got quite a few things to say, and I'll probably do that. I won't leave it too long after this because you'll probably be interested to know what happened, but yeah, so let's delve back in time to the 15th of January 2012 when Finley was born. Oh, so exciting. If I can, I will try and insert pictures through the video of, I didn't really have that many pictures taken, and yet again Kayleigh looks a mess as usual, because I wasn't expected to be going into labour, so, you know, at the time, but we'll get through that. So I will start with, he was born on Sunday the 15th of January 2012. He came a little earlier than planned. We were supposed to have him on the 3rd of February 2012, but he came 3 weeks early. So I was like, okay then. I'd actually just left work the Friday before, so I left work on the Friday and had my last day send off, and all my lovely cards and presents people had bought me, and a little cake and McDonald's breakfasts. And I think I already knew that he was coming, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I was speaking to my dad on Skype that week, and I said to him, I don't know, it was sort of the middle of the week, I was saying, I bet you any money he arrives before the end of the week. And I don't know why, because it was early, like weeks early. I was thinking, I was only 37 weeks. He was born at 37 weeks 2 days, and they don't really say that you're full term till 39, 40 weeks, and then you can go overdue for up to 2 weeks. So really I could have had 5 weeks ahead of me that he could have arrived, but for some reason I was just saying to my dad one night, I just think, I've just got a feeling that he's going to arrive by the end of this week. He's just going to be here. And he was like, oh, fair enough, fair enough. So yeah, it was a bit strange really. So I had my hospital bag packed purely because I was panicking that he was going to arrive, and I don't know, I just had a feeling. And I've been having sort of pain, not pain as in contraction pain, but just like aches and stretches, which is, you know, he's still growing, he's moving around, and I just kind of thought, okay, fair enough, that, you know, he's just him stretching. But what happened, I can't even remember how long before it was, but the reason that I went into early labour is because my waters had broken early. So my waters had actually gone without me even noticing at all. Sorry about the rumbling in the background. Yeah, so I woke up in the morning about 2 o'clock in the morning to go to the toilet, which I've been doing for weeks before, because that's what happens when you've got a massive big baby pressed in on your bladder. So yeah, I'd woke up in the morning, and as I stood up I was like, oh, I think a little bit too much information now. I think I wee a little bit, and I was like, oh god, what's happening to me? I was like, oh, what's happening? So I just kind of left it at that, and it was no, you know, in the films people go, oh, it's a massive gush, and it's like whoosh, and it all just comes out, and that's what I was expecting. So I thought, oh well, I've just felt like I've just sort of, not even like not like a wee, but just like a little, oh, and I was like, oh no. So I went to the toilet, thought nothing of it, didn't get pains or contractions or anything like that, went back to sleep, and that was it. So I would say that was probably a couple of weeks before, 2 weeks not long before. It wasn't length, it wasn't like months, but so yeah, I just left it, and I was like, well, if I'm in labour then surely I'll get some signs that I am, and if it is my waters, and they were saying to do all these certain tests on the internet, and it came back from what they said on Google, and it's my fault for googling. I should have really probably gone into hospital. That it wouldn't have been, it would have just been the baby pressing on your bladder. As soon as you stood up it just went, and I was like, oh, fair enough, you know, that's fine by me. But as soon as that had happened, every single day after then, it felt like I constantly needed the toilet. So I'd be sat at my desk at work and I'd be like, oh, I really need the toilet again. And I used to sit right at the end of the office, and it was a massive walk all the way down, and then I'd be like, oh, I really need a wee, really need a wee. So I'd run off to the toilet, and then I'd literally do like the tiniest wee ever, and I'd be like, oh. And then as soon as I stand up, I'd feel that like wee feeling again. So it was constant until I'd had him, and then it went away. So I'm assuming that was because my water had gone, and it was like a slow leak, is it they call it, slow leak? So I'm assuming that's what it was. So I went through Saturday, it was fine. Sunday morning I woke up, and I slept fine all night. I didn't even wake up, I don't think. Didn't wake up with having contractions. Have no idea what time I started having contractions. I just woke up at 9:30 Sunday. 9:30 Sunday morning. Yeah, 9:30. And I was like, oh, stomach is aching today. Whoa. And I was like, oh no, I think this might be it. Panicking, thinking, oh no, I think this is it now. And I was like, oh, maybe not, maybe not. And I left Matthew in bed because, I mean, it's a days before we had children, so we 9:30, now, saying now, I got up at 9:30, then I thought it was early on a Sunday, and now I'm thinking, wow, I wish 9:30 on a Sunday. So I left Matthew in bed, and I thought, I'll just see how it gets on, and I'll just go and, they said, I've read or heard someone else on a YouTube video, someone said, if you have a warm bath and it goes, the pains go away, then it's just Braxton Hicks. But if you have a warm bath and they don't go away, they get worse, then the likelihood is that you're in labour. So I thought, right, okay, I'll have a bath. And what I did, I ran it, and I was actually letting it, like I was like floating on it with like my bump in the bath to try and get and see if the pains would go. And I had assumed that contractions felt like you get a big sudden whoosh, and you're like, ah, and then they go. But for me it was more like a constant, just like, oh, like a really dull ache, and I could feel them getting stronger, but it's like they just never ended. It was just like a constant contraction. So I was like, right, okay, that just looks like that's going to be my labour. And I left it for an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, and then another sign that I knew that I was in labour is that I needed to go to the toilet a lot. That's enough on that. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, so that was just not, I couldn't stop that happening. So yeah, that I knew that I was in labour at that point. So I woke Matthew up and said, I think I need to go to hospital. I was sat on the end of the bed going, Matthew, I think I need to go to hospital. I think it's time. And from that moment I was so calm onwards. I didn't panic, and I was the world's worst worrier for panicking about labour and delivery and having to have a baby, and the thought of something coming out, and it just freaked me out. We wanted a baby, of course we did. We tried for nearly a year, but the thought of having to do it once I was pregnant, I tried to be like, block it out, block it out. Yeah, it panicked me. I didn't want to think about it. So yeah, but it was weird that the actual day that I went into labour I didn't worry once, I didn't panic. Apart from the moment I woke up, I was like, oh no, I think this is it. From the realisation that I was in labour, it just seemed to disappear. Any worries I had, any fears, I don't know, it was really, really strange. It was like I just knew that it had to happen, and I just let it happen, and everything was fine, and just did it. I don't know, yeah. So if you're panicking about being in labour or having to push a baby out, then don't, because when you wake up in labour, it's not that you'll be in that much pain, you have nothing else to concentrate on. It's just that your mind just knows what's happening, and you just feel like, yeah, I could, you know, that's fine, like, right, I need to go to hospital, I need to get my bag, and you're just very, okay, yeah, I need to do this. I just didn't panic at all, and I thought that I'd be like, oh my god, I'm in labour. and I really wasn't. I was the complete opposite. After I had woken Matthew up, I went downstairs. I was in some weird outfit, in like a tank top and comfy pants, and I don't know. I hadn't planned on going into labour so soon, so in the back of my mind I thought I had, and I'd even painted my nails because I thought I'm going to go into labour, so I'm going to paint my nails just in case, and I did. But my hair was in like a big top knot and I was just a scraggly mess, so yeah, but I wasn't bothered about that at the time. So I rang the maternity ward, and have a guess what they said. No, 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 you won't be in full labour, don't you worry about it. You just have a paracetamol and a little hot bath. And I was like, I've had a bath for about an hour and it's not helped. I know that I'm in labour and I know that I need to have a baby, so I shall be coming in very soon. No, leave it an hour, see how you get on. Right, okay, so they kept saying leave it an hour, leave it an hour. So by the time it got to about 1:30, 2, I literally said I'm coming in. I told them I'm coming in now because it's getting, and she was like, right, you just tell me when your contraction starts and then when it finishes. And I was like, I've still got it, it's still hurting. And she was like, I think she thought I was just having her on. But yeah, I keep like rubbing my belly thinking about it, like, oh poor belly. So yeah, I was like, right, she has no idea what she's talking about. So I got all our stuff packed up, car seat and my notes, had everything ready just about, and we headed off down to the hospital. So we locked up, and I was thinking the next time I come back to this house I'll have a baby, and it was mad, it was crazy to think that. So I got in the car, I was still having contractions, or what I would call just one long lengthy contraction that never ended, and went down to hospital. And I remember in the front seat I was just held the seatbelt and I just led like that, just silent, Matt thought I fell asleep. Okay, yeah, I was fast asleep having contractions and a baby about to make its entrance. Yeah, fast asleep. So we went to hospital, which is about 20 minutes away, not too far. And I just led there the whole way there. I wasn't like, you know, when you see people in films like, ow, 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 It wasn't like that. I was just, my eyes were shut and I was just zoning out, and I was just calm. And it's weird because I didn't think I'd be like that. So I got to the hospital, and they basically said before we went there that we'd get sent back home again, and I was like, no we won't. So we got there, they wanted to do some kind of test, was it like a blood, not a blood test, like a urine test I think, from what I remember, but I don't think I could wee. I don't think I could do it. I don't know what was going on with me. And I remember them saying, right, they're going to have to check you now, and I was like, okay, you're like not panicking about it at all. And then this man walked in and I was like, oh, right, fair enough. I was just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to have to go for it. I don't really have a lot of choice in this. And at the end of the day, if, you know, it's going to have to come out of there, so I'm going to have to get used to the fact that someone's going to be looking and touching that place. So this man came in and examined me, which by the way hurts a lot because I have no idea what he was doing, but it felt like they like flick. It's like, I thought they'd just be like, yes, everything's fine, but he was like banging, and I was like, ah, and they were like, do you want some gas and air? And I was like, yes please. So I had gas and air, which is very good. Yeah, so he examined me, and then he was like, oh, there's something not quite right, I can't quite, oh no, that was it. The woman examined me first, this little midwife, and she was so lovely, and she was like, oh, hang on a minute. And then that's when the man walked in, and he was like, oh right, yes, I can feel something like a capulet or caplut or I don't know. It turns out what it was actually Finley's head. So where the waters usually sit to protect it, the waters had gone and his head was starting to come. So when I'd started to dilate into labour, because there was no waters there to go as such, his head was already starting to descend. So that it was the top of his head that they could feel. So what they did, they just popped a little monitor on his head, and he's still got a little scar on his head now from it. I didn't think it would scar him, but he's got a tiny little scar. And then they left me, and I didn't have a birth plan with me, I didn't have anything, because obviously it was really soon and I didn't really know what I was doing and what I wanted to have anyway. I've decided already that I wanted to have an epidural. That's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me that's what I wanted to do, so I had that. And I had it really quickly. Somebody told me that as soon as you get into hospital, request it straight away. Request it, request it, request it. You always see on one every minute, they're like, oh, I've waited 3 hours and now you're going to have your baby now because it's too late. So I was panicking that was going to happen. But when they examined me, they didn't tell me how many centimetres. You know, they usually tell you straight away. And I was just asking the midwife, how many centimetres am I? Am I getting sent home? You know, she's like, none or one. And she was like, oh yes, you're 5 centimetres. I was like, what? So I was already halfway there, and these midwives were like, stay at home, don't come in, it's fine, it's your first baby. And I was halfway there already. The midwife said, oh, I can see you want an epidural, so that must have been in my notes already. She was like, oh, the lady's on the next door just doing somebody else's, so I'll bring you in a second. And I was like, that's when I was a bit like, oh my god, I'm about to have an epidural and have a baby. It was a bit like, whoa, crazy. So the lady came in, and that's when my contractions started to really step up. As soon as the guys had examined me and the woman, then they really started to get quite intense. And I remember actually like leant over the bed and had gas and air, and I was like, and she was like, calm down, don't worry, don't worry. So I had an epidural. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel it going in my back. I didn't feel the injection. I didn't feel anything, and it was fine. I could still move my legs, so I remember saying to the midwife, oh, I can still move, and she was like, oh yeah, that's normal. She was like, it's not like a spinal block where you can't feel, you know, you can't move or anything. She said you can still sort of move about if you need to. And I was like, oh right, okay. So I had an epidural, and I was left then till, so that would have been about 3 o'clock that I had it, 3:30 maybe. So it takes about half an hour to kick in, and everything was fine, and literally we just waited it out. They came and examined me again about 7. I know they left me for a while just to let my labour progress, so me and Matthew just chatted the whole way through, and we were dead relaxed. I remember ringing my dad, and I was like, hi dad, and I think he was expecting me to say, we're just going to pop down, and I was like, I just had an epidural and I'm in labour and the baby's coming, and he was like, what? I'm just trying to think what else happened. So yeah, we just chatted really. We just Matthew went and nipped off for something to eat because he'd not eaten anything. I wasn't allowed to eat, just drink clear liquids. So I didn't have anything to eat, and then Matthew came back. I'm just trying, it's a bit vague really, that in between sort of moment. I think I had a bit more gas and air. If my epidural started to wear off, you could kind of press a button if it did, and it took a while to then top itself back up so you could have some gas and air in between. He re-examined me at 7 o'clock, and the same doctor that did it in the morning, the man doctor. So he came back in and he examined me just to see how far along I was getting. I was expecting it to take a while, and he said, you're fully dilated, so you're ready to go basically. Another 2 hours, so we left it till 9 before I started to push, just because he said it would help Finley come down the birth canal, and then it'd be easier for me to push him out because I've had an epidural as well. It's not the best way, not the easiest way to push a baby out. To be honest, I think that was probably a bad mistake on their part, because from leaving him he actually started to come down, but then he started to twist because he'd been left to come down on his own devices, and he'd actually started to twist like that. So instead of him coming down with his face down, so baby's coming down out with the face down, he had started to twist slightly, so his head wasn't in as good of a position. So they left, they didn't know that at the time, so yeah, they left me till 9, and then said I could push for a maximum of 2 hours. So at 9 o'clock they came back in, and they were like, oh, you can do some practice, you can do some pushes. The thing is, I couldn't feel anything, and I don't think that helped either. I was assuming they were going to let my epidural wear off so I could actually feel when to push, and they were like, are you having a contraction? Push now then. And I was like, just push, and I couldn't feel anything. I said, I don't know if I'm having a contraction or not, I can't feel anything. So I pushed and pushed for 2 hours and kept pushing, and they were like, right, you're doing a really good job. And I was like, no, I'm not, it's not happening, nothing's moving. And they kept like, you know, running off and configuring it with each other and going off and chatting. And I was like, great, here we go. And I kind of knew at that point that it wasn't just going to be as straightforward, like, oh, here he is on your chest, doo-doo. But I was pushing till about 11, 11 o'clock-ish, and then they checked his heart rate and they said I could push for another little bit longer, not very long. They just wanted to get a reading from him. I think they took some blood from his head as well. I remember them saying we're just going to take a blood sample from him, and I was like, okay. And that might be where he's got like 3 scars, like a bird print mark in his head. Only tiny little ones, but he's got them in his head, so maybe that's what that's from. So yeah, so they checked me. Sorry, they took some blood from Finley, and I remember them sort of not being too happy with his heart rate, or it wasn't really bad, he wasn't distressed as such, but they were like, right, okay, push, and they were like, push, and I was like, I can't do it. I just couldn't feel anything. They should have let my epidural wore off. They were silly, they just top it up, and I was thinking, what are you doing? So yeah, so they said, right, okay, we're gonna have to call the doctor in because you're gonna need forceps, and I was like, ugh. In my head I thought that I wasn't like that, obviously, and I was just panicking and panicking. So when they said that I need forceps, I was just like, right, okay, you know, that was the one thing that I was really worried about having, because I just panicked about it before, reading horror stories, and oh, it just, you know, I don't even want to think about it now. But if you're really worried about having forceps, don't be, because I had them and everything was fine. It's fine. It really wasn't that bad. And you read so many bad stories about it. I've actually wrote a blog post on it about don't be afraid of forceps delivery, because it's really not that bad. So I'll link that if you want to have a read of that in more depth, but it really wasn't that scary. So the doctor came in, and it was another man doctor. I thought, right, well, at this point you might as well just go for it. And I remember them saying, they led me straight on my back so I couldn't see anything, and one of the midwives rushed over and said something like, oh, if this doesn't work, you're going to have it's going to be a sunroof job. It's going to be a sunroof job, like a C-section. And I was like, yeah, okay. I was just like, right, okay, yeah. Like, they're calm. I wasn't panicked at all. Then this doctor came in. I didn't see the forceps, gladly. She just led me back, and I remember looking to the midwife and saying, did you have a forceps delivery? I was like looking for some reassurance, I think. And she said, no, but don't worry, everything will be okay. And I was like, ah. And then I remember them saying, right, the first forceps in. And I didn't feel a thing. I felt the physical feeling of it, but I didn't feel any pain. And I would say it felt like, so say if you got I described this in my blog post, say if you got a teaspoon and you like rubbed it on the roof of your mouth, just softly, just like that, it just felt like that, I suppose. And then it lasted it seemed about less than minutes if that, and they were just like, push. So I was pushing and pushing, and I just remember the feeling of it's like coming out. Is that too gross? Is that too much information? But it didn't hurt. I didn't feel any pain, but I just remember this like, oh, this just like that kind of like a thank God for that kind of feeling when the head came out, and then his body as well. They were like, and then, but I remember them pushing the buzzer on the wall, so like the emergency button, and it was like, and loads of people shot in, but as soon as he shot in, then the rest of him came out, so he was fine. So yeah, so then he was born, and he was born at 11:45. I remember going, what time is it? What time is it? Like wanting to know the time, and then they just popped him on the little table, and then there was like a little paediatrician in there. He checked him over and listened to his heartbeat, tried, you know, cleaned him all up. I wasn't bothered about him being cleaned up really. They could have put him straight on me, but I think because of the forceps they have to give them a check over, so they did that, and then he was brought to us, and I had to have some stitches. I'm not too sure how many. I think I had a 2nd degree cut. I had to be cut, so I had a 2nd degree cut. That was fine. That wasn't too bad. And yeah, so I was all stitched up and ready. Everything was fine. I didn't, you know, it really wasn't scary. I wasn't wheeled off anywhere. I wasn't wheeled off into a surgeon's room or a theatre. I was just in the normal delivery room, and it wasn't like a mass panic apart from that when they pressed the button. But by the time they pressed it, it was gone. You know, it wasn't that bad. So yeah, so it was really good actually. Looking back, it's a bit crazy now thinking about it. So he was born at 11:45, and then I remember still being in the delivery suite at 3 o'clock in the morning with Matthew as well, and we were just like holding him, and it was just crazy. And and then they get you some tea and toast afterwards, like, do you want some tea and toast? And then Linda at my old work was saying they will ask you, they will tell you, and she's like 50 something, so they must be like a tradition that they do, is give you tea and toast. Yeah, it was really good actually. Yeah, it was really good. What else? Finley did have to be whisked off for, and he had a drip in his right hand, so he had like antibiotic drip because my waters had gone and they weren't too sure how long they'd gone for. That he was at risk of like an infection. Luckily he didn't have one, that's why I had to stay in hospital a little bit longer just to see if that did come back, that he did, but he didn't, so that was okay. But he was on antibiotics for a couple of days just to rule out any infection, but he didn't have one, so that was fine. What else? So yeah, that was, I suppose I'll end my labour and delivery there, and then throw in my hospital experience after. What time is it? Yeah, I better undo. I can hear some banging downstairs, so I better have to leave it. So yeah, that's when Finley was born, so it was really good really. I don't know if I've given you loads of information, I don't really remember loads. I do remember thinking, oh my god, I haven't shaved my legs, and you have your legs up, everyone's like always can see them because you've got like no trousers on obviously. I was like, oh, I've not shaved my legs, look a mess. But I thought, oh never mind, doesn't matter, does it? So yeah, that was really good. If you've got any questions, or if I've missed anything out, or you want to know a little bit more detail, just let me know, because I've probably forgotten chunks and chunks out of it, and it might need refilming when I do think about things that I've missed out, but I'm hoping that I've remembered everything as much as I can do at the moment. And yeah, so let me know if you've got any questions and I will happily answer them for you. And I hopefully will bring Finley into a video soon. So I'm talking like he's a tiny little baby really, but really he's like, huh, a big monster. So yeah, that's it. But if you want to know anything else, any video requests, let me know. Any blog posts that you want to see, I'll link that one that I talked about before. I'll put that in the description for you so you can have a look at that if you want to. And it also goes on about, he's got a little mark on the side of his face from where the forceps were. It's nothing major, it's just like a tiny little mark there on the side of his face, and he did have a bit of forceps burn around his face there, but that went after about a week or so, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, so all in all, a positive forceps labour and delivery video. I don't think there's many of them out there, and I'm hoping that this will at least help one person that was feeling as scared and as anxious as I was when I was pregnant. It was a really positive experience, so I will love you and leave you there, and let me know if you've got anything, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye!